Hi, this is Steve Neff at neffmusic.com, and I have a free lesson for you today. I've done a few of these, two so far. I did one on my approach note velocity books, and then I did another free lesson on mastering the bebop scale, book one and two. And today I'm going to be doing a overview lesson on mastering the blues scale, volume one minor, and mastering the blues scale volume 2 dominant chords. um, I just think it's important to do an overview lesson just so people can kind of see what the book is about, and how to best practice from them, and what they can get out of them. So uh, let's talk about the blues scale. I mean, the books are on the blues scale. I think most people out there, if you've been playing for any amount of time, you usually pretty quickly find out what a blues scale is. I remember for me it was like eighth grade. I started playing the sax in seventh grade. Eighth grade, I think I joined jazz band, and I remember I had a solo. He's like, "Who wants to take a solo on this?" And no one raised their hand, and he picked me, and I was scared to death. I was like shaking. I didn't know what to play, and I think I actually said, "What do I play?" And what did he give me? A blues scale. He said, just play these notes, do whatever you want with them. As long as you play these notes, it's going to sound good. And I don't remember the exact solo, but I remember there was lots of dashes, like they have in solos and jazz band charts, and there was little notation over them, obviously chords. I didn't know that back then. I had no idea what it was, but, I gave it my best shot. And to be honest, I didn't know if it sounded good or not. I just played something with those notes, and I had no idea. Um, so many of us have had that experience where it's like, yeah, play this scale, and it works. But I think a lot of people never kind of make it past that stage. It's like they know they can play the scale, and they play the scale, but they never take it to a more advanced level with the blues scale. So, and by a more advanced level, I mean hearing the notes and how they fit against the tonality you're playing against the chords, hearing how they want to resolve, hearing where they want to go, playing phrases with the blues scale that sound good, that make sense, and also playing with feeling and conviction. It's one thing, like, I'll play something right now. So, a lot of times, like I said, you'll be told to play a blues scale. So I'm gonna play, let's say E minor. Okay, that's E minor for tenor sax. Sorry, I gotta turn this way to. Okay, that's the E minor blues scale. E, G, A, B flat, B, D, E, and I just played something with that. Now, when we're younger, you're given that scale, and they say play whatever you want with that scale. But what a lot of young students do, I'm playing random notes from that scale, just kind of in a random way, and that's what a lot of beginner students do. They don't have a sound in their ear, the phrasing, they don't hear the resolutions. I didn't resolve any of those notes. I was just playing notes, and you can hear how the difference in the sound. One way I play notes and I'm resolving them, I know where they want to go. The other way, it just kind of has this random feeling to it. I'm not resolving the notes. There's kind of no rhythm or feel to it, no articulation, no, you know what I mean? And a lot of that comes from listening to music also, like listening to people play the blues scale and then trying to copy them. So again, like here's the same thing. E minor for tenor sax is D minor on piano. But here's the same thing. And I'm going to play it something with feeling again. Conviction. difference? Okay? So that's what kind of this lesson's all about. It's about these books. Now, what are these books? Basically, I had the idea because, like I told you, when I was a kid, I was given the scale on a sheet of paper. That's all I was given. I was given that scale. No idea what to do with it. It took me years to figure out what to do with it and how to use it. So what I thought is, let me write a book with all the kind of phrases and ideas that I learned through the years that I use, and let me just put them in a book and maybe hopefully give people kind of a head start, and you know what I mean, like basically a head start, and so you can get further in the shortest amount of time. In the beginning of the book, please read the intros. Again, I'm going to be talking about this one right now, Volume 1. So these work over minor chords, a minor groove or a minor tune or just minor chords like I just played. And in the intro, I talk about how these notes fit against a minor chord and how they want to resolve. And I talk about hearing those resolutions, hearing the tension, hearing the consonants, all that. So, and I give you examples. And then I give you tips on how to take the lines and then change them. Make them yours, manipulate them, kind of mess with them. And we'll talk about that in this overview lesson really quickly. But it's important to read what I've written, play through the examples, and kind of try to grasp what I'm talking about here in the intro. So I'm going to go to page 14. Now the book is in all 12 keys, okay? So I wrote all my ideas. Basically what I did is I sat down, with one of these manuscript paper, and I just started playing a blues scale, and I'd play a cool, something I thought was good that I usually play, and then I'd write it down. Then I'd come up with something else and write it down. And that's that. I think each section of the book has 100 different lines that I wrote down, and they're 4 bars. And I tried to purposefully write most of them in 2-bar phrases. So I wrote a 2-bar phrase that repeats, and then the second bar is a little bit changed to make it musically nicer to listen to. And you'll get that when I go through these. So here's what you do with the book. So like number 2 on page 14 is on E minor. And if I play it just like I wrote it, sorry, I got to take off my glasses. Well, maybe I'll back up a little bit. Okay, so number 2. Okay, now if I take that, I just played it exactly like it's written. And there's only so much, you can convey with the notes on the page. The goal of this is for you to take these notes on the page and to get off the page and put them in here. Okay, so how do you do that? That's what this lesson's about. So the thing I just played, the line I just played, number 2. Okay, so that's the idea. That's the line. Now it's just a blues scale going up, a little riff, blues scale going up again in a riff. This is number 2 is a pretty basic one. But what you want to do is play that over and over, get it into your vocabulary, get it up in your head so you memorize it. And then what I suggest doing is then being creative with it. So for me, when I get creative with something, when I take an element or a thing, and I get it up here, the basic building blocks of it, and then I start being creative with it and changing it, that's when it gets ingrained up here. That's when it starts the power of that is instead of learning number two, the one line exactly like it is, and that's the only way you can play it, that has limited possibilities. You can only do so much with that. You play that more than twice in a solo, and people start recognizing it and going, why does he keep playing the same thing? But if you take number two and you learn it, 100 different ways and you do 100 different things with it, then all of a sudden you can use the same ideas based off that building block, and no one knows you're basing it off that same thing because you have different ways you can manipulate it and change it. So let me give you an example of that. So number two again. I changed the rhythm and I added a few notes here. I think I added one note, but it was mostly changing the rhythm. Okay, there it is again, a little bit different change of rhythm. That was twice as fast, 16th notes. Okay, you can do that. Now the second bar is a lick, so like I might just take the second bar. Okay, you see what I'm doing? I'm just repeating bar two and getting it into my vocabulary, into my head, and messing around with it, being creative. And then the bar four. Okay, just messing around, getting that. I might combine bar two and bar four. I don't know. Okay, did you? So that's what I'm talking about. Just taking a line. And I prefer to do this to music. So I put on Jamie Aebersold Volume 24, which is major and minor, put on a minor groove, and I just start playing to the minor groove. I also have on my site, neffmusic.com, I have a blog post with my favorite kind of like new, modern, funky minor play-alongs. They're not play-alongs, they're tracks I found on iTunes, but a lot of times I put those on with students and we just start jamming with these blues scales to them, just getting the sound of the blues scale with that tonality as it just grooves some kind of modern groove over a minor key. Okay, let's look at number three. So number three is the same thing. If I play it just like it's written, like here's playing it, I'm reading it, playing it with no emotion. It sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's how it's written. There's no articulations written, there's no accents, there's nothing like that written, but what you got to do is breathe some life into it. So now if I get a little more, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, did you hear it there? It was the difference is the second way I'm playing more confidently, I'm articulating more, I'm putting some bends and kind of some vibrato, and I'm making it more personal, basically. It's to me, it's similar to like if you're reading a story. I don't know if you've ever done this, but reading a story to kids or to just people in general, you can just read the words on the page. I used to read to my daughters at bedtime. They're older now, but if you just read the words on the page, Lucy walked down the path and she saw a ferocious wolf jump out of the bushes. If you read it just with no emotions and no expression, it's just kind of like dry and boring. But if you put some emotion in there, Lucy was walking down the path and a big wolf jumped out and scared her. For a little kid, it's like, oh my gosh. So the analogy is with the notes on the page, you want to work on not just playing the notes, but putting life to them, expression, feeling. And you're not playing these for little kids, but you're trying to get people who are hearing you to feel something from what you're playing. That's the whole point of that. So if I take number 3, I just changed the first 2 measures a lot. I'm taking those notes. Now, the other important thing of what I just kind of did, you heard me messing around with it, changing it. I think it's also very important while you're doing that to try to work it into your existing vocabulary. So if you already kind of play stuff with the E blues scale, and this is a new thing for you, then try playing your usual vocabulary, stuff you already know that's pretty good if you know stuff. And then when you get to the G, try to play this seamlessly right into your vocabulary. And then when you get done with it, try to get out of it into something you already know. And to me, that's similar to taking a word. You learn a new word, and it's one thing to learn a word out of a book and say it at home, but then you got to go out and use it in a sentence in your vocabulary if you ever want to get used to using it. And that's the same thing with this music. It's like you got to work it in. And so you practice at home working it in to your vocabulary. Okay? And just so you know, number 3 on page 14, I'm basically starting on G. You hear that run going down? I just have a squiggly line going down. What I'm doing is just playing the E blues scale really fast. It's just playing that E blues scale really fast down to B flat, okay, from G. And so the whole book is basically things like this. There's 100 licks. Let's pick a random one. I'm going to do number 16. No, I can't see close up with my glasses, so I got to back up a little bit. Okay, so that's the lick. I'm adding some feeling to it and my own thing. But that might be a foreign lick to you. Like for that part. I'm just taking the first beat, or first 2 beats, first beat and a half of number 16 on page 15, and I would work that into my vocabulary. This is the thing. So you repeat it, you work with it. playing that first tiny little bit and then trying to mix it in with already. That's what, I mean, that's basically what I went through when I was younger, and to this day, when I'm trying to work on something, get it in my line, um, playing it over and over again, repeating it, trying to work out musical phrases with it. And when I was younger, I didn't have this book to like work out of and use. What I would do is, I mean, to be honest, when I was in high school, Dave Sanborn, he was like the the blues scale master for me in high school, and I would listen to something a solo, and I'd go, what's he playing? What notes? And I'd be like, oh, that's a blues scale. But it didn't end there because I had to copy what he was doing and how he sounded and how he bent the note and how he maybe added some growl or some effect to it or vibrato and all that articulation. And I'd have to play it over and over again with the record player and then listen and then try to copy. Okay, that all goes into this. So okay, so that's book one basically. There's 100 of them in there, and you don't have to learn every one. But what I would suggest is go through them, play them, and pick the ones that you really like. Star them. That's what I do. Some of them in here, you might play and go, that's a star. That I want to learn that. I want to be able to play that. Others you might go, I don't really like that one. That's fine. Pick the ones you really like. And remember, it's better, as far as a daily practice session, it's better to master one than to play through 100. Okay, just remember that. Like, if you're going to work on this today, you want to end your practice session with, I mastered number 14 or whatever it is. I mastered it. I got it up here. Then just to play through all 100 and you get done with your hour practice session and I don't remember any of them. That's just my philosophy. I'd rather work on mastering one than none. Okay, so that's my extra tip of the day. Now, volume 2 is on dominant chords. And I read the intro. Basically, here's the quick breakdown on how volume 1 and volume 2 is different. So in volume 1, it's on minor chords. So if I play E minor for my tenor, I played the E minor chord, and then I played the E minor blues scale to that chord. Now volume 2 is dominant chords. So if I play a G7 chord, I'm gonna go. Wait, let me make sure this is the right example, because I have it in the intro. I want to stick to what I have written here. Yeah. No. Okay. I have a different example. Good thing I checked. So on page 11 of volume 2, I give you the example of an E7 chord, and I have written in the middle of the page the E major blues scale going up. And then going down is the E minor blues scale. Okay? Let me turn down the volume. So if I play an E7 chord for my tenor, E7, this is D7 on piano. Now I'm going to go up the E major blues scale. And I went down the E minor blues scale. So book 2 is basically taking that concept and running with it. I'm just writing all these licks with that concept. Now, why is this important? Because this was huge for me, because I learned the blues scale in high school, maybe junior high, and then I really learned it in high school. And I was really good with it. I could wail on most tunes with a blues scale. But I remember getting to college and hearing other players. Most notably in my mind is Pete Chrisley. He's a great tenor player in LA, and he played on the Tonight Show band. But he came to my college in Little Ithaca, New York, and he's such a bluesy player, and he played with our jazz band. And I remember listening to him and going, hearing it and going, that's a blues scale, but it sounds so bluesy, and that I could tell it's a blues scale, but he's using it unlike how I use my blues scale. I knew one blues scale, I used that one blues scale, I used the tar out of it, but here's Pete Chrisley doing something different with it. And what he was doing was what this book's about. He was using it on dominant chords and mixing up the two blues scales, and it took me a little bit to figure that out. And so this, hopefully book 2 is kind of like a jump forward for you, so you don't have to go through years of what I did and trying to figure out what people were doing. So now if I run with that, like, oops, sorry, here's a D7 again, E7, E dominant 7 for tenor sax. Now I'm going to improvise going up the E major blues scale and down the E minor. That was all up E major, down E minor. Okay. So it kind of opens up the possibilities, because now instead of having just one scale, you have two you can mess with over a dominant chord, and it works over a major tonality too. So now if I open up the book, page 14, let's pick one. Okay, I'm just going to do number 2 again. I did number 2 of the minor. So this is G7, page 14. Okay, so that's number 2. Now, again, that's how it's written basically, with a little inflection from me. But I would take that. That's a little bit changed. All right, I tried to do something and messed up, so let me try that again. That was better. Okay, so number 2. Now, how many different things can you play with number 2? I would milk that. If I were you, I would milk that for all it's worth until it's up here. So if I put on F7, you see, I'm playing the first 5 notes. Just messing with the first 5 notes, seeing what I could come up with. You might take the notes and rearrange them, you know. That's taking the first 5 notes and just rearranging on the order of them. Now, some of the ideas you might come up with might not be good. And that's some of the ideas I come up with when I'm practicing, I'll try something, I'll go, ooh, wait, let me try this. I'll try it, and I'll go, man, that was a total fail. Like, that was not good. But that's okay. That's part of this process. So when you do that, you just go, okay, that didn't work. Let me come up with something else. And you keep going, you keep moving. Now, I might take, that was the first two beats of number 2 on page 14. I might take the second half, You know, you got the first two beats down. I might take the second half. Okay. I was taking beat of number 2, page 14, beat 3, and then measure 2. Creating with it, messing with it. Again, I can't stress this highly enough. You want to get off the page as fast as you can, okay? You might look at it to read it once, but then get it in your ear and try to look away. When I'm practicing, I walk around the room. When I play tunes, I'm walking around the room. When I'm working on a pattern or whatever, I'm walking around the room. I'm looking out the window. I'm moving. I get away from the page as soon as I can. And I've done that since I was a kid, like in high school. Because I somehow knew I got to get off the page, because if I'm trapped and enslaved by this page, I ain't going to be able to do this, basically, when I was in high school. So that's what you want to do. You want to take these and get off the page. And then I would suggest also taking these, definitely playing them with music, because playing them and hearing them against a tonality helps your ears and helps you hear it. And then I would also say to try to do them in other keys. Once you get them down, try to do them in other keys without looking at the book. Okay, so if you got this down, you know, that was in G, try it in A, you know, so you go A7, it starts on the 7th. Okay, if you try it in A flat. Okay, I messed up there. You see what I'm doing? B. So the reason for that is because it's more practice about getting it in your head, and then once it's up here, getting it out in different keys. I'm still hearing the same thing. I'm just starting it on different notes, and that practice is vital. Now you might wonder, why did I put the book in every key? Well, there's a lot of people out there that maybe don't have the time to go through all this, and they're, you know, playing a Friday gig with a rock band, and it's F-sharp 7 they have to play over. So for them, they can, before the gig, look at the F-sharp 7 part, play through a few, and go, oh, this is what I can use, get it down, and then go to their gig and use it. So, and a lot of people are like that. They don't have the time to practice through every key, every single line, and all that. So I'm trying to like accommodate this for everybody out there. Okay, so should I do another example? Let's see here. Okay, let's do 7. Actually, let me see if there's a better example. 7's a good one, but yeah, because I can't find. Yeah, let's stick with 7. There's a lot of them in here. So I talked about in this book we're combining 2 blues scales. Now on number 2 that I played, I basically did combine 2 blues scales. The notes were taken from the 2 different blues scales and mixed up and mashed up. Now number 7, I take on page 14, I go down the minor blues scale. And then I change it on the next measure to the major blues scale for the resolution. So that sounds like. Okay, but that's dry. That's what I have been talking about. That's how it's written on the page. Now I would take that. difference? I'm making it more. I'm kind of putting Steve Neff's mark on it with those ones. I'm playing it, but it's more like, okay, this is me and my own little touch on this, and that's what you want to fight for. That's what you want to work for. Being able to play these like that. And again, play them with the music so you can hear how they fit, how there's tension and release against the tonality. We're running over on time, but every single note I try to hear. There's a lot of tension on that note. There's no tension on that note. There's a lot of tension on that note. And you hear me bend a lot of those notes with tension. Check this out. I'll bend the B flat. We're doing number 7 still, page 14. When I got to the tension ones, I bent them a little bit as I went slower. And that's just a little extra tip, Steve Neff tip. I found that when you hear like younger kids playing these blues scales, they hit a note with tension, and it's just nothing on it. It's just dry. It's just they play it like every other note. But when you hear greats play a note with tension, a lot of times you hear a bend. You hear a manipulation of it. It's almost like saying, yeah, I know this note sounds pretty rough, but man, I'm playing it and I'm milking it. And there's something about that bend that I think, even though there's tension on the note, the listener hears the bend and the movement, and they go, oh, there's tension, but it's going somewhere. And then when it finally resolves, it's like, oh, I knew it was going somewhere. Now it's like resolved, and they don't know all the words for that, but I think that's why it sounds so good. Okay, so I think I covered most of this. I mean, what you can do with these books is, I think, endless and limitless. I mean, there's 133 licks in this book. There's more because there's more possibilities with the 2 blues scales. And this is no exaggeration, and I say this all the time, but I tell students, if you can learn and master your blues scales, you could go out and get a gig today. I totally believe that because it happened to me. I mean, I was a kid and I had my blues scale down in high school, and it didn't take much for me to start going to jam sessions and things, and just I'm talking about playing the tar out of your blues scale, playing it with feeling and emotion, and when you play it and the crowd starts going yeah and cheering, that's what I'm talking about, getting it down. So if you really master these and get them down and can play the tar out of them, I'm serious, you could go and sit in with a band, and afterwards they'd be like, hey man, you want a gig? You want to join our band because you sound great. You don't have to know every single scale and every single extension and every single kind of alteration. You just have to, if you know your blues scales, if you know how they want to resolve, if you can play musically with phrases and with feeling and passion, it goes a long way. That's all I'm saying. So these are the 2 books. Get them, and I'm trying to sell them. This is basically, it's a teaching lesson, but it's also sort of a commercial. So I hope you get them. I hope you love them. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me on my site. There's a contact form, and I would love a review if you review them. But I would just lastly say, don't be quick to give up on them. Don't read through them and go, oh yeah, this is the blues scale. I know this. I know the E blues scale. Like, try to go through all the things I just talked about in the lesson and really just milk it and go for try to get them as great sounding as you can. Listen to other players, Stanley Turrentine and guys like that, who could just play the tar out of a blues and try to copy what they did, and what even Dave Sanborn, like I suggested, on alto, or Michael Brecker could play the tar out of a blues scale too. So whoever you listen to, you know, Hank Mobley, well, he played a lot of bebop too in there. So, but there's a lot of great guys that could really milk the blues scale for what it's worth. So, all right, I hope this lesson helped, and I hope you get into the blues scale and get it down. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.